Hello everyone and welcome to the Adam Kiss Show. Today I'm very excited to be talking to you about The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This is one of those famous movies that everybody knows about. It's definitely considered one of the great movies ever made, certainly one of the great horror movies ever made. Having said that, I wouldn't really classify it necessarily as a horror movie. I mean, yes, it is probably technically a horror movie, but what I love about it is that so much isn't shown, and it's what isn't shown that is really scary. I mean, there's a famous quote about that what you don't see is much scarier than what you can see, and this movie definitely uses that to great effect. So, before we get into that, definitely subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you're updated whenever we upload new videos, and share, like the video, and comment below what other videos you'd like me to do. All right, let's get right into The Shining. So The Shining is definitely one of Stanley Kubrick's most famous movies. It's definitely one of his most well-known movies. And honestly, it's one of my favorite of the movies that he's directed. I am not as much a fan of A Clockwork Orange or 2001: A Space Odyssey, though I appreciate both of them, and especially 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was an incredible feat for cinema. It was an incredible feat for storytelling, for filmmaking, for all of that. It just personally is not as much my cup of tea, though in other words, perhaps the best way to say it would be that I appreciate that movie with my mind, but not with my heart. It certainly does raise a lot of interesting questions. I mean, 2001: A Space Odyssey does, about technology, the advancement of technology, and that aspect of it I absolutely love. And as for A Clockwork Orange, it's similarly, I appreciate it for what it is, but it just personally isn't my thing. In terms of Kubrick movies, I suppose that The Shining, Barry Lyndon, Full Metal Jacket. I even like Spartacus, which is an early movie that he disavowed. He disavowed it because he considered that the studios took too much control of that and he wasn't really able to express his artistic vision fully. So those would probably be my favorite Kubrick movies. I also love Paths of Glory, also with Kirk Douglas, which was right before Spartacus. And actually, because of his work on Paths of Glory, he was invited by Kirk Douglas to replace the director on Spartacus after the first few days. But I digress. So The Shining is essentially about a writer who goes with his family to be the caretaker at the caretaker. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the caretaker at this hotel for the winter because it closes down, it's too much snow, and he has to just take care of the place. And essentially, there's very few characters, so this was a high-budget movie, but it could have been done for a low budget. I mean, it's just the hotel, and it's just his wife and kid, essentially, for a big portion of the movie. And then as it goes by, he starts hallucinating more. He's a writer, and we don't know what is real, what's not real. And that's as far as I'll go in terms of spoilers. Again, it's a great movie. What I found is that less and less people these days have seen it. I mean, it used to be that everyone's seen The Shining. I think that these days, if you ask really young people, they probably don't know what that is. It's one of those movies that, unfortunately, kind of like Casablanca, it's kind of becoming less and less known as time goes by, which is a true shame. It's really a great movie. I actually haven't seen it. I did not see it until about a year and a half ago for the first time. And since then, I've seen it several times. It's certainly been a big inspiration for so many filmmakers, myself included, obviously. I mean, it's a great simple story, which is all you need for a lot of things. And yes, I mentioned before, it's technically considered a horror movie. But what I like about movies like The Shining and The Exorcist is that they're not really about the horror, just about scaring people. They have much deeper themes. They're about much deeper things. They have a lot of hidden meanings, hidden clues, all things like that. And the fact that for both of those movies, a lot is left up to the interpretation. That's something that I absolutely like in my movies whenever I write a script, because I've written 10 or 11 feature film screenplays so far, and we just finished producing one. But what I like is when there's some ambiguity in a script, when the audience is kind of brought into the story by kind of participating, by having to figure it out themselves. And then what I love about that is that two people can interpret something totally differently. It's like when you see a Picasso painting. Two different people can look at it and have a totally different interpretation from it. And that goes with a lot of artwork, with a great painting, a great play, a great movie, a great book, a great anything, really. If it's great, I feel that there's always some room for the audience interpretation. Everything isn't spelled out to the audience like everyone's in kindergarten. I feel like the best movies and the best stories in general happen when the audience is an active participant and when the audience isn't spoon-fed everything. I believe that's really the best. In terms of, this movie is famous for Stanley Kubrick's working methods. He was famous for being a perfectionist, for doing multiple takes. In this movie, he definitely lived up to that. His goal was, the whole goal is that everyone's kind of deteriorating into madness, stuck up there. Jack Nicholson famously hated cheese sandwiches, so Stanley Kubrick would only feed him cheese sandwiches, so he'd get extra mad and angry in his performance. And the scene with Shelley Duvall and the baseball bat going up the stairs, I believe he did that, I don't want to lie, but I believe from my recollection, about 150 times that take, just to get her to the point of total madness. He definitely believed in, like, behind the scenes, kind of trying to get people behind the scenes into character already. This kind of stuff probably would never happen today. It's the kind of stuff that you definitely don't hear about anymore. That was in, I believe it was in 1980 when this movie was coming out. So again, you don't hear stuff like this anymore. I mean, you heard a lot of similar things on all of his movies, like Barry Lyndon is another great example where there's a lot of similar stories of that kind of thing, just multiple takes and multiple takes. And the interesting thing is his Kubrick's editing methods were very interesting. I mean, with his editor, he would literally go through, for example, they would be working on a particular scene. They would go through each take of each scene, whether it was 150 takes or 50 takes or 80 takes, and they would go through each individual line and find the best line performance of each individual line and rank those all in order. And they would do that for every single character. And then they would try to fit all the best together, and then they would worry about continuity and thing. But you can imagine that was a very long process. There's obviously several ways to edit. We're nearly finished with editing of my feature film, My Last Words. And there's so many different ways to edit, but that was definitely a very meticulous way to really make sure he reviewed absolutely everything, got the best of everything, and only then did he start worrying about continuity and things like that. Again, editing is a funny thing, and especially now in the digital age, I can only imagine how much harder it was in the film age in those days when they actually had physical film. I mean, definitely, I would love to shoot more on film. I think that's definitely a goal of mine. I think it gives a great aesthetic. I mean, for my recent movie, the goal was to give it the aesthetic of film, that old world feel, while not actually filming on film. But yeah, in terms of, so Kubrick directed it, Jack Nicholson, the part was very much suited to him. Let's put it that way. I think there's that famous line of his, "Here's Johnny." I think that was actually an improv line. It was based on, the "Here's Johnny" from the Johnny Carson show. And Kubrick actually didn't get the reference because Kubrick was living in England and he'd moved to England several years previously. The interesting thing is that he, for the last part of his life, he only liked to work and shoot and live in England. That was really where he felt comfortable, I believe. He left when he left, he felt that the United States was getting kind of dangerous, so he settled in England, and he, I think, rarely flew. I think famously he never liked driving in a car above 25 miles an hour. Again, he was very eccentric that way. And even with Eyes Wide Shut, his last movie, all those New York scenes are on sets in England. That's not really New York, those are all sets. And obviously whenever he had some need for a shot that was actually in America, he would just have a second unit do it or something like that. But again, he was able to get away with a lot of it in England, actually, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, until I learned that, I wouldn't have known, for example, in a movie like Eyes Wide Shut, that those New York scenes were not New York. I guess they really had extensive sets. But I digress. So The Shining, again, it's an absolutely incredible movie. I was only introduced to it a couple of years back, so it's very... it's not a movie that I grew up with or that I watched as a kid. It's really a movie that I only discovered recently. And again, it's definitely a favorite of mine. I think it's absolutely one of the greatest horror movies of all time, if you can classify it as that. And yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about it right now. So thanks so much for watching. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Give us a like and comment below what other videos you'd like me to do. And follow us here or on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, all the social media platforms for more great content just like this. And remember, I'm here for you. That's all, folks. And now I would like to introduce.
Hey, you're doing another video
I
of just
am,
making
yes.
banana bread.
Ah, yes. Well,
For Christmas already.
if you watch this video, then you deserve a banana bread.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let it so shall it
and
be.
mine is the best, that's
Absolutely.
for sure.
So come on over.
Absolutely.
This is my mom, Christina Kiss, and welcome to our audience.